All right, so I'm Raul, and I'm here with John Strickland of American Hook Wrestling. So today we're going to talk about points in catch wrestling. Uh, yeah, catch wrestling has no points, and that's part of the what makes it its own style. Um, so at least personally, I remember what Roy Wood kind of said. It's like with regards to wrestling, catch wrestling becomes the closest you can get to a real fight because you're not concerned about giving up points and like if someone took you down, you're not thinking like, oh, I just gave up like 2 points and how do I get that deficit back or whatever. It's like no, you're
Sure.
still in it. So what are some of your thoughts on um, what points does to catch wrestling?
Well, I don't. For me to even say them in the same sentence to say like what does points to catch wrestling, it's like, well, then it's not catch wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, to me, it's no longer catch wrestling. There's points.
Mm-hmm.
Um, points in wrestling is a new phenomenon. You know, this started in the 20th century. Wrestling has been around since the dawn of man, like we talked about before. So points is a new thing. Um, and it's interesting you brought that topic up this evening because earlier today, I think I was looking at I was watching a match and I was on YouTube. I don't remember who it was, but I was reading the comments and somebody said, "Well, catch wrestling choose to um, eliminate points," and I really wanted to respond to it, but I just didn't. Sometimes it's hard for me not to, just because it's so just it's frustrating for me to read that because as somebody that I don't know. I don't know. Because to me, it's like, who did you know who wrestled in catch wrestling? Having a personal relationship with like Billy Wicks and Dick Cardinal, and besides the fact you can read history books and everything else, there's never been points. I think I'd even mentioned before that a concern of mine was even some of the time limits I thought were too short. Maybe not in tournament formats, but I think when you start having super matches, and when I think you start getting situations where you have two wrestlers that are very even, and they could be really bad and be even, or really good and be even. I've seen some really bad matches going for a very long time, so, and um, and it's okay because everybody starts out real bad. So I'm not. It's not taking a shot at anybody. We all start out real bad, but it's a serious truth. So you see these matches, and it's like, hey, or you got two guys that can just, when you read about some of the matches, that Stecker and some of these guys that are behind me on the wall, you probably can't really see them, but matches that are having, you know, uh, yeah, they could go for a long time. And I know in my own gym, I've seen my guys. It's not uncommon to see Matt Strand roll with a guy. Now he might pin him or submit him 500 times before now then, but he'll roll with a guy for an hour and a half. You know, which I've actually gone to get lunch and come back to the gym, and he was still rolling with the same person before. So yeah, so I don't think points are a way to go.
No, and then like so we see like the two main styles that evolved from catch wrestling. Like the freestyle and the folk style. Um, it I think it's gone to the point where it's not that they're unrecognizable to catch wrestling, but they've eliminated so many things due to points and rules. Like freestyle, just it, it it looks very foreign to what like catch wrestling was, right? Like it.
Yeah, as somebody grew up as a wrestling fan as long as I can remember, uh, and been involved in wrestling for a long time. When the Olympics decided, okay, we're going to have a ban. We're not going to ban. We're just going to drop wrestling. Excuse me, ban. Definitely wrong, but we're going to drop wrestling. So then there was a big storm, and all of us were like, no, 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 you got to have wrestling in the Olympics. And I feel like you do because it is a founding Olympic sport. But that being said, I also understand why its viewer ratings aren't that high, um, because they've made it painfully boring, a lot of it. And I think they've done it by having way too many rules. I don't like freestyle wrestling. I can remember 30 years ago saying, yeah, it's okay, 40 years ago, but now It's just like with freestyle, there's just no incentive really to get up. There's no incentive to escape or reverse. I mean, very little, you know. And if they're going to have a point system, I don't think you can do that. So I think that's made that boring. And then, you know, one of the things that a good friend of mine, in fact, you know him. I won't mention him right now, but he and I we don't argue. I mean, we give each other a lot of grief, and it's a lot of fun. And we debate this a lot. But well, I'll just say it's Chris Rogers. So I'm just going to call him out right now. So anybody who wants to give him a hard time about it can. But we've argued about riding time a lot, you know. And I understand his position. If you throw legs on or you're riding a guy, controlling a guy, you got to do something with it. I agree with that. You know, we're not talking catch. We're just talking completely like on a folk style, collegiate style level here in the United States. Riding time gets 1 point. That's absolute garbage. Because for a style that's supposed to be a mat wrestling style, you're given more points. You're given more points for, I mean, a guy hits a takedown. You know, a guy scores a takedown. Think about this. And of course, a couple of things have to happen. So it's not like you can go 2-0 and then you go into a ride, right? I mean, you can at least get an escape point. But you can take a guy down, which is a split second. You know, he battles out of it. I don't care what he's doing. He's got some ride on you. He's riding you. He's on top of you. He's breaking you down and riding you for the entire time length. Let's say for the entire period. Mm-hmm. There's no question who won that. You know, but the points, I think a lot of times, to me, points are just like a non-physical official, a referee, who interrupts a lot of times. You know, we've seen it in some classic boxing matches where people might get that the referee. I've heard the announcers even say the referee is too much involved in a fight. And the old adage was a good referee, you don't even see him from your viewing screen. You know that he just wouldn't, unless he's just needed. But I think that's one of the problems I've had with, you know. I mean, because to me, I don't care what happens between, you know, something that somebody condones as a point. When you put a submission on somebody, it's basically telling somebody, you know, when they tap it, that's like them saying, "I give up," you know. And and personally, I think that's the ultimate, to make them say, "I don't want to wrestle you anymore." And then pinning somebody, what I have to put behind there, and then points. I mean, you know, I've coached high school wrestling, and I tell you, like, if in that situation, it was kind of funny because I was actually telling a guy this the other week, Roll, that we're talking about the difference, and we're in the gym actually, and you know, I was talking about him earlier, and I said, you know, now in high school, or if this was collegiate or something, I'd have a completely different game plan here. Like, what I did in high school, I would push my guys to, we want to be point machines. A lot different kind of wrestling than maybe what I push as much. As far as in catch, I mean, as far as, and not, I'm talking about technique, how much drilling time we're doing on our feet compared to how much drilling time we're doing on our feet and catch. It was quite a difference.
Yeah, no, but I think that's why, like, say, catch wrestling could be an effective base style, like for someone who wants to do like MMA or something like that, because it's you're not just stopping and getting up. You know, it's like if you like you're not playing like that kind of point game where it's like, yeah, maybe you get a bunch of takedowns and but you let the guy up each time so you can try to get a takedown again and just try to game the system in that way.
Well, I always thought the beautiful thing about catch was, or wrestling, was that, you know, this is something I try to make my students understand, especially in the beginning. It'll be one of those phrases I say, and I might not expand on it with them then, but it'll make them sometimes scratch their heads. And like in a real fight, if you can't get up on your feet and take off and run, you can't defend yourself. And somebody always looks at me like, what? And then I'll show some guy, you know, I'm like, look, if you, let's say, put me in guard, for example, in order to get out of guard, you're going to have to, if I'm on top of you, you're going to have to either sweep or sneak out or something. Then you're going to have to turn over. And then you're going to have to do this to get you back up on your feet. I just want to get to my feet, you know. And so I think in a real life situation, I think that's one big reason that in fighting that I think wrestling has an advantage is the fact that as a grappling style, um, you know, I know the difference between that. Like in the jiu-jitsu schools I've been in, I don't see them drilling stand-ups, for 3 hour practice.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we used to do is like they used pop snaps get down and then you'd have somebody get on top and then we would go for escapes and reversals and all that. And he wasn't a big fan of stand-up. So, for example, I kind of took that with my guys, but I switched a few things. And around here, I put the stand-up as a stand-up drill for several hours, and I think it's smart because I think it's to me it's like the basics of fighting, the basics of being a human, of being that animalistic instincts we have, fight or flight. And if I can't run, I can't. Because I mean, anybody that says, "Oh no, I would never run," then they're just an idiot. I mean, because they haven't thought about all the scenarios that could take place on the street. Hopefully not for anybody, but you know. So
Yeah. So then, so let me ask you this. So what I'm seeing is that there are trends, with a lot of the pro grappling, like matches that we're seeing. It's like we are seeing kind of what we do in Catch Wrestling Alliance, where we have like a 20-minute time limit, but no points. I mean, so like these jujitsu ones, they're kind of going that way, where it's like some longer time period, but no points. They just want to try to see who really wins. Like, so they go for submission only, right? And so I I think that's good, actually. I think that's a trend that is good ultimately. I mean, what do you think?
no, I think it is too because I think that you know you got to make somebody quit sometimes in a real fight, unless
Mhm.
somebody comes in and stops it.
Mhm.
So whether they quit because they can't continue and they're unconscious, that kind of quit, or they just quit because whatever reason. They could be gassed, or they don't want to keep getting beat up, or you got them in in a hook, and they don't want something torn or broken. And I think when you get into a situation like you're talking about, how jiu-jitsu is evolving a lot of their kind of tournament formats or whatnot, to me it just makes more sense too because stuff becomes popular opinion, and then it's like, oh, like I heard some other day, like something like, oh, you don't know what the lockdown is. Well, of course I know what it is. It's like you're not breaking out any kind of new like genius thought on us here. You just didn't like discover. You're not going to get a Nobel Prize for this. And I mean, and the fact is that it's like, of course I've seen it. And it's not really new. And of course, what other people are doing. But I think one of the things when you talk about so let's say you take that for example, so that becomes real popular, and people unfortunately point system go, oh, should we give that points? Like I can remember tournaments back in like the late or 90s into early 2000s. It's like, oh, he gets points for jumping guard. I'm like, well, okay, all right. Do I get points if I stand on him? No, that's illegal. Oh,
Mhm.
so uh, all right, but yeah, so I think when you talk about I think the fact that and that's an area too. I'd say we have in common with jiu-jitsu. If you recall when NHB started kind of blending and fading into becoming MMA as people know it today, one of the things I remember hearing some of the guys in the jiu-jitsu community, especially out of Brazil, was they don't want a restricted fight like that. They didn't want a 3-period fight or a 5-period fight. They want to fight until there was a winner and there was, a clear-cut winner, and there wasn't an opinion, a popularity, like is, you know, I've seen in MMA, for example, in the United States, I've seen judges who absolutely favor strikers over grapplers, absolutely favor striking. You can see a kid go down and work a submission, like, man, he's got him in trouble. And people don't realize like how close that kid came to getting his arm broke. Obviously, permanently, disabled or something. And person throws a double jab, and they're like, oh,
Mhm.
So I think it's always been unfair. And I'll get back to what you were originally saying here, keeping that in mind, is that So I think whether it's, Billy Wicks used to say to me, he used to say, Henry Colin used to say, "Can you make me quit? You can beat me, but can you make me quit?" And I was like, "Well, that even makes sense, right? You can beat me, but you can't make me quit. If he beats you, he doesn't have to make you quit." But, you know, the point was, can you make me not want to fight you anymore, not want to continue? And I think that is kind of the soul nature of, even in striking artists. We've seen, there wasn't this point system I would even be willing to bet the point system is very like westernized type of thing, even in like striking arts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, going back to like boxing and what was it they used to call that over in England? What were the old rules of boxing? I can't remember right offhand. It's embarrassing. Oh, somebody will, I'm sure, reply. And there's
Yeah.
was it like something Queensberry rules or something like that? Anyway, but I think the fact that when you get into that situation, um, and again, I'm not saying there should be formats for points. Hey, look, if you want tournaments with points, if you want to do, I'm not, you know, but it's not my job to support a point system either. So, when people are like, "Oh, you're running down point systems," I'm not running it down. It's just not my job to be an apologist for it. I'm not going to. So, it's not my thing. It's not what I like doing. Maybe have a kid fight MMA or go to Naga, for example, or something like that. Then of course we got to think about points. But honestly, like grappling events, I still view the same way as I do in catch wrestling. Like I don't even I pretty much like when they're reading off rules, I'm just like, I'm not even paying attention. Really, I'm really not paying attention. Like I just assume you can't punch the guy in the face or something. But I tell my guys I don't care if if you go for something, get disqualified because of the hold, you're not supposed to do it. I don't care. I mean, I'm pretty happy that if you throw a toe hold on somebody, I noticed having a conversation with a young man the other day. He's trying to understand the difference between an inside and outside toe hold. I said it's the same exact thing as an inside outside heel hook, except it's not. You're not using your armpit and your inside, your bicep and your side, and you're not laying back. You don't have a leg over. It's like you're using your hands instead.
Mm-hmm.
The thing to grab that we grab things with normally, that it were evolved to do great, wonderful things as far as like pulling and bringing to us. I've tried telekinesis, but it doesn't work. I mean, for hours back in high school, I really probably should have told that story. But yeah, so I think that's got to be though, right? I mean, I think that has to be. I mean, when I did point karate as a kid, and I was pretty good at that actually. Probably just because I was just really small. I was kind of quick. Probably good for me. I probably would have got killed if it had been full contact then. Going against a lot of bigger kids. But I'm using moves like these sliding little back fists. They're just little open hand slaps to the face, and they're scoring me points, and they're quick, like pop, coming off the line, pop. Kind of like Karate Kid stuff, right?
Yeah.
Except with all the foot and hand gear on, all that good stuff. And they're scoring points. And I remember when it came through that, I had a friend who was who did very well in Ishinryu karate, nationally awarded, fighting championships, all kind of stuff, And this is before even this is before even the first UFC. And I remember he wanted me to help him with this demonstration for an event, and so I was like, yeah, okay. I hadn't done karate since I was a kid, but okay, And I had boxed with my grandfather since then. So he wanted to spar with me, and I was like, all right, yeah, man, but I was always real reluctant, especially with somebody that was kind of, we're pretty decent friends, and I never had before sparred with him, and it's like, how are you gonna keep control? Or I've seen guys who are like, oh, I'm your friend, I'm trying to kill you, and then I've seen guys that are like, oh, we're just gonna hit this speed, and then it just, it just increases with every few seconds. Everybody starts hitting a little faster and harder. But anyway, so to get to the point though, I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, but don't kick me in the face, please. And he's like 6'1" or something, right? And so he's like, yeah, okay. And the first thing he did was kick me in the side of the head with a roundhouse kick.
Mm.
And thankfully, it wasn't like a Muay Thai kick. He would have probably killed me. But he kicked me in the face. Um, and I think he might have faked the kick low. And it's just been it had been 30 years since, or 20 years since I've seen that. So we went low. He caught me with a kick. I hit my hands up. So I decided, backed up. I was like, hey, man, And then I was like, nah, you know what? Just do your thing. And I didn't hit him hard or anything, but what ended up happening was I started backing him as I got inside. When I got inside and started throwing punches inside, he um, was basically overwhelmed, and um, he wasn't used to that continuous long fight, like
Mm.
where you have a boxing round where you get to continue to fight to the end of the round. He was used to scoring a point or scoring 3 points and stopping him back to a line and that kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then he also wasn't used to a situation where he was boxed in and he couldn't get out. So, uh, he had a different theory too. Like he's like, I would have thought being smaller, you don't want to fight me from a long distance. And I was like, no, I want to be close to you. But
Yeah, seriously.
I was like, I got short arms and short legs. I need to be close. I don't need to try to find the outside. So, but going back to that, and he and I talked about this for years, how points they have their point. They do have their point. No pun intended. But no, they have they represent. Um, I think an avenue that is needed. I think especially we're talking kids, we're talking, or even adults. Want to do points. Hey, I mean, whatever, do your own thing. And I think that's the thing when I look at catch wrestling. To me, it's like, you know, um, I just think in a perfect world for me, if you said, "Hey, John, you put on an event, what do you want to have happen?" And I wrote this the other day, I think on Facebook somewhere, that I like to have like 3 matches against three with obviously 6 guys that I know are really good, and it's going to give us 3 great matches, and kind of away from a tournament format, but more like a entertainment format, but not faking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Not
exactly.
predetermined entertainment.
Yeah.
So, and just, I mean, it's like, yeah, I want to see like, um, you know, um, guys go and wrestle until somebody's pinned and it doesn't have to be 2 out of 3 falls or anything like that. You don't have to get anything too ridiculous. I mean, if we guys wrestle for an hour and a half to a fall, I don't expect there to be another fall. I mean,
Yeah.
and I would have a problem with that. If I wrestle for a guy for an hour and I lose, I'd be like, it sucks. Maybe we'll wrestle again. Um, that would be it. Because I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, well, I think also people they don't realize that not all the pro catch wrestling matches were best 2 out of 3. I mean, so even that one that's on YouTube, the Joe Stecker one, Earl Caddick, that one was agreed to one fall only. So whoever won that one won the night. So yeah, it doesn't always have to be 2 out of 3, but yeah, like if we could, yeah, like I guess I'm with you with that whole idea where it's like if we could have it be catch wrestling, no points and you go until someone wins. That's catch wrestling, really.
yeah, and that's why every all the other, at least Western, I think American styles of the wrestling catch has influence. I don't know about in England. Like I don't know if the other styles that are outside of catch as catch can, uh, like Westmoreland. I think is what styles. They got a bunch of different styles. That's an interesting, just little research. Just looking at not our folk style, but not different folk styles internationally of countries. Finding I mean, there's wrestling everywhere, and all kind of different rule sets and techniques and philosophies behind it, and all that, and what their drive is. So, I mean, I think if I could com- compete in sumo, I'd absolutely get destroyed. Like I have, like I mean, because I'm just sitting here going, okay, I can't let him push me out. That's all I know. I'm going to drop to a knee when he comes at me, so he doesn't push me out. They're probably going to be like, oh, probably a loss. I'm guessing. I don't know, or some
Yeah.
kind of major no. So anyway, yeah, I'd like to see that match go on, and I realize, here's the problem. People, one thing I've noticed too, and it's getting strained away a little bit from the point system you brought up, but there's this thing about like, oh, we're going to make catch wrestling as popular as any other sport in the country, and this has really bothered me for some time because I've talked about this. They're saying like we need to change our sport so other people want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my thing is this, and they're like, don't you want to test yourself against the best? Well, then go to Naga, then go to ADCC, go fight in MMA. You know, hell, put up a tent in your front yard and take on all comers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to change catch wrestling you know, if you wanted to have like, you know, if you wanted to say like, uh, with kids or something like an amateur style catch wrestling where, you know, kids, uh, maybe a judges system or something. But I just don't like again, you know, run time. If you have a 20-minute match with somebody, and I'm sorry, you got legs in on them, and you're riding them for 20 minutes, they lost. Period. End of story. I don't care if it goes to a 20-minute decision, and you rode them for 20 minutes. If you
Mm-hmm.
rode them for 17 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
they better like killed you, and somebody like brought you back from the dead during that match or something before I could even consider wrapping my head around the other person winning.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, you are, you know, you're not beaten, but you're in an inferior place. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's one of the things I see. And so but the thing is like, I've heard a few people, not many, but I have heard a few people that kind of concern me when they're like, oh, well, I'm talking maybe one day as big as baseball because UFC is and all this. And I'm like, man, this probably not gonna. I just think that's ridiculous.
Well,
Can you hear?
yeah, in a way, maybe it is a possibility because the decline and the popularity of baseball. So maybe we can kind of we kind of meet them as they decline, right? But not necessarily. Like I'm trying to make a joke or whatever, but yeah, basically,
No, no, no. I get that. I was just sitting here thinking, and I was just sitting here thinking, like, you know, you see these. I mean, the truth of it is, the people who are into catch wrestling right now, the age range of 18 to let's say whatever age, or anybody today who's into catch wrestling, even if they don't train in catch and they're just a fan, or they're you know trying to learn catch somewhere, or whatever it is, whatever the case may be. If you want to be into catch wrestling now, you probably are to some extent. So I don't think it's one of those things that we're going to go get like my neighbors and they're going to start watching it.
hmm
I mean, nobody in my family, none of my friends, every now and then, but they don't even realize, like, you know, it's like, they don't, some of them, like, I mean, the ones that grow at me, yes, but like my wife's friends and their couple friends and all that, then they'll come over and they're like, wow, he really is into wrestling. So, you know, they don't talk to me ever about wrestling, and they're not about to sit down and watch a catch wrestling match. I mean, I probably could. I mean, my dad would watch, but my mom probably she wouldn't like. She wouldn't even watch it if it was televised.
hmm
She'd probably be a nervous wreck in the other room because you know I don't know. Says it bothers her. Always has since I was a kid. And then when Casey saw me when we got married, she told my mom, she's like, "Yeah, I don't like seeing her do that." You know, they'll see you compete in anything or whatever. I guess it's scared. He's gonna make it upset them, and I guess that is probably hard. But I don't think. But getting back to it, I just don't think. No, I don't think we. And that's not being. I'm not trying to be negative. Um, I mean, we barely exist today, and that's during the time with the best information we've ever had in the world, as far as technology to reach people around the world.
hmm
Um, you know, I just had a guy down. He came in from Sweden, California, North Dakota. Uh, so yeah, you know, it's a much smaller world now because of technology and everything. And I think you know, and I think we will get bigger. But I just don't know that wrestling. I mean, because when you really look at wrestling, like we are talking about back in the days of the match you're talking about earlier,
hmm
was it Caddick and Stecker? Was that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about those days, like, oh, it rivaled baseball, yeah, and then it had to become professional wrestling for a reason because it couldn't. It is just because wrestling, as we know, I mean, it's like, I mean, the first time I saw like The first time I saw like UFC, I remember thinking I thought like it might be worked because I was like, who is this skinny little dude from Brazil beating up these big guys that are like this guy's like a 4-time ninja champion or something, or he's like
Hmm.
a 4-time ninja black belt, right? So no, I am, and I'm just like, how could he do that? So obviously he was horse racing, he was beating people with stuff they didn't know what it was,
Hmm.
and um, so yeah, I was like, wow, that is really awesome, and I knew, of course, that wrestling at one time had submissions, and I knew one time wrestling, and that kind of got me headed trying to learn about catch. But I think that's it, though. It's like the people they're gonna they're gonna get in it because they want to. And when you look at, I mean, even though the UFC does well in popularity, I don't think the UFC does well under the old rules like it does now, and I don't think it does well if you were to. Um, if they didn't do stand ups, if the referee didn't stand up half the fighters in these things,
Hmm.
I think it would get a lot worse ratings. And I just think people in general, it takes an educated crowd to know a lot of times what's happening in a good wrestling match. Of course, sometimes it's pretty straightforward and anybody can understand once they hear somebody screaming and somebody else twisted on
Hmm.
them or somebody's on their back.
Hmm.
But it's those little things that people don't understand, like, oh man, that was like, I didn't really see what happened. What made that so great? And it's like, oh, it was just his technique on the 2-on-1 just to break the grip was beautiful. And somebody's like, how can you micro a move down that much and get, but I do. And I was like, that's what I love. But I
Hmm.
realize I'm a weirdo, and most people don't like that. Most people don't want to. And like what I was going to say about the Gracies, a lot of catch people sometimes that we want to have this rival with jiu-jitsu, and I've said for a long time, going back to all the points and rules and everything, I agreed with the Brazilians about no, let's have a fight, let's see who wins, and you know, as far as the wrestling goes, or whether it be like in the old Valley Tudo, I think
Hmm.
is what it was down there when we fight. So. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a lot more in common with jujitsu than people want to say. Yes, the philosophical differences of being on your back versus not going on your back, uh, but you know, just as there's a lot of similarities with folk style, there's a lot of similarities with jujitsu, and that's excluding submissions. I'm going to exclude submissions just on some of the mindset thinking, long matches, fight till there's a winner. Um, um, Staying calm. Um,
Yeah.
so I had brought this up, and I'll say that in this, I'll say on it. I was telling one of my guys that was down here the other week. I said, just imagine like in 30 or 40 years, they're gonna have wrestling, like high school wrestling is gonna be, if it exists at all, is gonna be like 30-second periods.
Yeah.
You know, it literally will just be takedown wins. That's it. Or so it's gonna, as long as it's gonna. But and the only reason I can say that is because of the concussion rates and all that. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, he started laughing. I said, "Could you imagine? Because the more you condense it, the more rules you add, the more points you add, the
Hmm.
more wrestling you're losing. You're
Hmm.
you're 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 subtracting the wrestling out
Yep.
and saying, let's get rid of wrestling and put points in where wrestling could be.
Hmm.
Let's put this in where wrestling could be going on. And that's, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And then there'll be people like us, like on the outside of that. Like, hey, if you want to learn the real thing, we'll teach you. But it doesn't mean it's not going to be like the mainstream, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I always said, it's like, I don't, it's just, I'll get somebody hit me about, training distantly and coming to train with me or coming out and do a seminar or videos or whatever. And then they'll ask me about somebody in catch wrestling and like, well, I don't really, I truly don't really keep up with other people. I mean, I don't do it in grappling in general either. I mean, I do take advantage, of course, like I say, of social media, video, and stuff like that today. And I watch I watch my students, their opponents. I watch my athletes who they're going to go against.
Hmm.
I keep myself a little. I have ways to keep myself up to date, and it's not just social media on kind of common things you'll see from a jiu-jitsu player now,
Hmm.
certain different things I like to do. But that being said, I don't. I honestly don't go and watch like all catch wrestling matches on YouTube. Like I just don't, because I'm going to be honest, some of them look terrible.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't, to me, and it's because I just, I'm like, if I want to watch point wrestling, or if I want to watch decent wrestling, then I'll just watch Oklahoma State now on Saturday.
Hmm.
I mean, if that's what I'm going to watch, so. But it's not even the fact that whether the athletes have been wrestling, because I'm not going to crack. Again, we all start out bad. We all start out not doing a damn thing,
Hmm.
and I think when I just don't like to see the restrictions. I don't like seeing. I want to see these two people now, and I do. You and I've talked about this plenty of times. Tournaments, you do have to have a time. I get that. You know, um, I mean, what was an Olympic match that went like 11, 16 hours, 11 hours, something like that, something
Like
crazy.
11. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, at that point, that's hilariously funny. Like, if you told me I was going to go watch a wrestling match and it's going to go on for 11 hours, honestly, I'd go to it still.
Hmm.
Hell, I would probably take a cot with me to sleep. I would definitely carry a sleeping bag and a pillow.
Hmm.
And I probably wouldn't fall asleep, but just sit there and lay back, chill, and watch it.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
So, yeah, but I think that's, I think when we start that process of saying, hey, we, let's just, we want to do this, or we want to add this, or take out this, it's just like, man, and I hate to use that slippery slope fallacy because it doesn't mean this is what will happen, but it does seem like when you start doing that, a lot of combat sports, you
Hmm.
really change the nature of the combat sport itself.
Yeah. So
Um,
in that way, in a way, I kind of wish, like, when you start, say, if someone wants to do stuff like that, like add points or limit certain moves or whatever, then uh, they just don't call it catch wrestling. They call it something else, like point
yeah,
point wrestling or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Look, Chris Rush is my best friend. He's putting on an event next year.
Hmm.
And some people are like, oh, it's a catch match. I'm like, no, it's not. And he'll be the first person to tell you it's not. He and I talked about it for a long time, except for the fact that, uh, my organization skills, suck, but my world's kind of, I don't know, some days from the next. It's pretty inconsistent, just with some of the responsibilities, you got in life and stuff. But we had talked about doing this tournament, and he's wanting to do this tournament. And I had the vision of, well, I just want to do a catch wrestling. This was going back like 2007. We started talking about this, or six. And I was like, oh, I just want to do a catch wrestling thing, where we have catch wrestling. And he was like, I want to go against all these different styles. And I was like, no, I get that. I too. So then he turns into like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? He's like, I want to put on a big tournament. Me, I was like, I don't care if we just have two people in the back. And you and I set up lounge chairs and watching. It's the best damn wrestling match the world never got to see except for us. That's awesome. I mean, it's unfortunate for the athletes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because it's like I've seen some great matches in the gyms, but I mean, I'm talking like, yeah. I get the fact that people want to have like we want to have like 300 people here. Well, I get the fact that you're probably not going to do 20 minutes, and you're going to be like, okay, pin or submission. I mean, you're going to be there for a week.
Hmm.
So whatever, So I don't hold it ill will against somebody that does that. But like Chris had said, we were talking about this. I was like, what are you going to call it?
Hmm.
And so we came down to like Winnie and I were looking at this, and I can't remember his rules set right off hand, but it's not like a catch wrestling. There's a pin involved in it, but it's not a catch wrestling pin. And he'll tell you that. And they're like, no, he's making it where a jiu-jitsu guy feels like he has a little bit better chance of fighting it, and giving points for like stuff and doing. It's very similar to. It reminds me a lot of like some of the highest stand rules, go cars association. A lot of their rules, except for like it also helps though amateur wrestlers too a little bit. Some of the points driven. So um, his vision was just he just wants to see like different styles going at it, and that's great, and I love that.
Hmm.
But also, like I think there's something to say that like, hey, I want to go out and um, I want to wrestle under catch rules, because that's what I do. That's my style. So, like, for example, I know I like going against jiu-jitsu guys and rolling with them and stuff like that. But there's times where it's just like, man, don't put me in guard. Like I really don't want to keep doing this. Like, you know, there are situations that happened one time here a few years back, but it was I had a guy, high level jiu-jitsu guy, get really upset because I kept hitting him with toe hold when I rolled, and he actually cussed me out. It was like, "Do you know? Can you do anything else besides that toe hold?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really need to." And I wouldn't have been an ass back to him, but he was being rude. And the only reason but I mean, he was also going out for blood. I mean, he was like 15 years younger. He's fighting professionally. I was like, all right, well, cool. I'm gonna go toe hold you. You're gonna calm down. And he kept giving it to me. I mean, I'm sorry if you stick your feet near me, you stick them near my hands, I'm gonna grab them. And if you stick your teeth out in front of me, I'm gonna hit them.
Yeah.
So, it's straightforward. But yeah, I think it's okay to have tournaments like that. But I don't think. But like Chris said, yeah, because this is not catch wrestling. It's grappling masters. That's what he calls it. It's grappling masters.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah, and at least I'm happy that he's so aware that he admits that, and just give it a different name. And I think that's in a way that's my point. Just like don't be calling it catch wrestling, and you're doing all these things like like the main thing of our thing was points. So, I think that maybe we can probably just end it here for this one. So we talked a lot about points. So if anybody has any questions or for any other video that we can discuss, then just put them in the comments. All right. So thank you, John.
Well, thanks, Raul. Enjoyed it as always.
Cool. Well, until next time. All right.